Well, remember those huge numbers of people aged 18 to 49 years of age that have been wiped out of our workforce? Well, they're sick now and they're starting to use healthcare resources. And guess who's going to pay for it? Take a look in the mirror and know that there could be a tsunami of economic devastation coming. This is the Dr.Jane Ruby Show, and you're about to enter Truth in Medicine. Welcome to the Dr. Jane Ruby Show on this Wednesday, April 12th, 2023. I'm your host, Dr. Jane Ruby, and I'm excited to be back with you after a wonderful, kind of partial week off for the Easter and Passover holidays. I hope you all had a blessed time with your friends and family. Now, many of you may or may not know that I'm a health economist. I'm highly published in health economics during part of my time in the pharmaceutical industry. One of my two master's degrees is in international health economics and pharmacoeconomics. And as I watched the shutdowns in 2020 and 2022 across the American small business model, and then saw the devastation and the illnesses and the sudden death, the disabilities that resulted from these bioweapon shots, and the dropout rate in the American workforce, I couldn't help but worry and wonder through my health economics glasses what additional devastation could be on its way. In economics, you learn that there's a limited amount of resources, like a pie, that can only be divided or cut up in certain ways. You can't get more pie. That's what you get, and it can be divided up. You can shift the resources and the size of what you're cutting up depending on the many different factors. Well, tonight, I've invited Peter Schiff, who's an incredibly accomplished financial expert. He has what I would call a Goldwater approach to managing finances and participating in a free market economy. Part of the emphasis in Goldwater's book, famous book, The Conscience of a Conservative, was about personal responsibility. It's about avoiding debt that then spills over into society for other people to take care of and bail you out. It's about saving your own for your own accountability, planning for your own self-sustenance, not depending on the government to bail everything and everyone out. I hope you will enjoy this. I hope you'll be as excited for this interview as I am. I want you to learn what he has to say and then think about the implications for your own situation, your own lives, and the protection of your families. I'm really excited to talk to Peter. In the meantime, I want to mention a couple of things that are going on. I have really reinstituted or resurrected, if you will, a lot of the information, the pictures, the photos, and some of the videos I'm going to be bringing out from the initial work that I did with Richard Hirschman, the first embalmer, to my knowledge, to come forward. It was in a story that I broke worldwide in an exclusive in January of 2022. It's a great story, and it's been hijacked sometimes. It's been gaslighted. It's been stolen and used in various movies and advertisements without any reference to all the work that I did originally. There were a number of other embalmers who came forward. They wished to remain anonymous, but they gave me files with their own pictures, their own videos of pulling these white, very tough, fibrous clots out of the vasculature. I just have to make sure that people understand. We've got to clarify what these things are. They're not blood. They're not blood clots. When they're referred to as such, they only serve to confuse the public and minimize the credibility of the embalmers so far that have come forward. So I worry about that. I'm concerned about it. Let's stay accurate. Had some people who've seen this material for the first time in the Twitter world. Remember, I was banned from Twitter, so I thought it was going to be permanent. But in the recent months that people have been reinstated into their accounts, I was able to get my account reinstated. And so I'm having quite an impact over there. In fact, I posted some pictures over this past week, last weekend, in fact, of some of the embalmer pictures with the information. With some of the information, not everything, because they've got to parse it out, but with a lot of the information from the analyses, the multiple analyses that Mike Adams put together. What he found in terms of the composition compared to human blood of these fibrous clots, the material. So people have to do their own, when we say do your own research, people will look at these things on social media and say, well, what about this? And where's that? Go look it up. I'm telling you, it's there. Go look up Mike Adams. Go look up his interviews of me and with me. Go look up my previous interviews with him. And you'll see more extensive information he's put out multiple times in long articles with all the tables and the graphs. And make your own decisions, but make your own decisions based on all of the information and the right information. Now, people sort of responded to it in my Twitter feed by throwing pictures of something somebody sent them. No chain of custody, no explanation, no context. It just doesn't even make sense. So I don't want the waters to be confused. Mike Adams has asked over and over again, made public pleas to other microscopy and chemical experts, analysis experts. Please replicate my work. Please repeat this, or do your own and try a different technique. People say, well, did he look at it with a, did he look at it with radiation or 5G? No, but that's what science is. You start something and then other people build on it. Maybe somebody, an engineer or something with the 5G or the radiation detecting equipment can do that. So you'd have to reach out to either Mike or to Richard Hirschman or go to your local embalmer. And if they're telling the truth and they are seeing this, get some samples from them. And then you can run it. See, we need many people. Unlike some of the people that are on social media right now doing shows on histrionic platforms saying, well, I examined 3,000 vials, and so I'm going to tell you that there's none of this or that in the vials, okay? We're asking for the opposite. We're asking for more people and more scientists and more people with labs to replicate what Mike did and to add onto it with additional methodology and look at these things. Okay? And that's what we need. And in the course of this, because people are coming kind of late to the party and seeing my postings, there's like this swarm to interview, more embalmers. Hey, I'll interview any embalmer that wants to come forward. But when I didn't respond in a day or so, these people got very aggressive on Twitter. And here's how I know somebody's a troll and who's not for good. Here's how I know when someone is just trying to discredit for the sake of it, or they're sent from something or someone else. When I didn't answer within 24 hours, they immediately started reposting, she's a fraud, she's a fake. I don't think so, okay? I've been around now for 2 years. I broke the story. I've talked to countless embalmers who have brought these situations, these pictures, these videos, all these things. Okay, so just wanted to share that with you. Stay with me now because this interview tonight is going to be incredible. I'll be right back after this important message. Well, who doesn't want to breathe better and protect the air that your babies and children take in? Who doesn't want to protect the entire family from chemtrails, shedding symptoms, and allergy problems? Well, take a look at the Triad air filtration products. They have something for everyone. There's a home unit that covers up to 3,000 square feet. The Go that sits in the cup in your car. Don't forget the Mini. This is one of my personal favorites for your single room, a dorm room, hotel room, or any individual room like those that massage therapists use for their clients. There's no cord to worry about. You just plug it in and it takes care of the room for about 200 to 250 square feet. With electrostatic filtration, these air purifiers cover every corner of your home and your life. The advanced photocatalytic oxidation and the pulse ionization collect all the harmful matters in your environment and provide you with pure air. You'll never need to change a filter. So no expensive cycle of buying filters over and over again, because the needlepoint ionization technology of these air purifiers means the air is cleared electrically by charging the molecules in your home. And the large home unit is energy efficient, which means it uses very little electricity and won't blow up your monthly energy bill. And don't forget the personal Triad Air Shield. This gives you a 4-foot perimeter around you. You can wear it on a lanyard, on your shirt, on your belt, your purse, backpack. It's always there to protect you. Go to filterssuck.com. That's filters with an S, suck.com. And don't forget to use the promo code RUBY for 10% off your entire order and free shipping. Well, the lockdowns, the loss of small American businesses, the backbone of our economy have had their toll. But the illnesses for those who did not perish immediately from the COVID flu or the bioweapon shots are about to come home to roost. As a health economist, I'm very concerned about the effect that all of these have had on our young people, this previously healthy core of our workforce in the United States. They're now disabled, many of them suffering with cardiac, hematologic, and neurologic disease and devastation, not to mention serious exploding cancers. Well, I think of those things in terms of cost and resource use. We already had almost 20% of our nation's cost burden reflected in healthcare. Where is it headed, and how do we protect ourselves from financial annihilation? Well, Peter Schiff founded and leads Euro-Pacific Asset Management, a company that believes in savings, capital investment, and productivity growth, not debt-fueled consumption. And I couldn't think of anyone with more expertise to educate us and guide us during these times. And Peter joins me now. Peter, thanks so much for being here today. It's great to see you.
Oh, it's absolutely my pleasure to be on your program.
Well, thank you so much. I wanted to start out, in this first segment, really laying out, you do such a great job communicating what the issues are right now in terms of the economy. I think the average everyday person feels, hey, they know something's going on with the banks. Should I run down to my local bank? Should I take all the cash out? And a lot of other people are pretty calm about it, but they really don't understand it. So I thought we'd take some time to lay out how you see it. What's really happening with the banks? What does it mean to the average person? And are only the rich going to be protected? These are some of the questions, that come through my social media. Maybe start there if we could.
Well, first of all, the banking system in the United States has been thoroughly corrupted by government regulation and other forms of intervention. So the system is basically insolvent as a result of government and the moral hazards that were implicit in insured, government guaranteed bank accounts. So, the public really doesn't care what banks do with their money because the government has got everything insured. And so the banks know that the customers don't care. And so they take a lot of reckless risks with the money. And as a result, they're in a predicament that they're in. And that was partially and largely the result of interest rates having been left at zero for so long that banks were encouraged to load up on low-yielding long-term treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. And those losses, those assets have now caused substantial losses as interest rates have risen. And customers are looking to withdraw their funds from the bank because the banks are not able to increase interest rates, but they can get, 4 or 5% on treasury bills. So people want to keep their money in money markets and loan it to the government. They don't want to leave it in a bank where it might be loaned out to a small business owner. And so as American businesses don't have access to credit, the U.S. government is getting all the money and blowing it on consumption. But, you mentioned, should Americans respond to this financial crisis by withdrawing their money from the bank? And I think that, I think to the extent that you have money in the bank that you don't need, so your checks don't bounce. If you're talking about longer term savings, there is no reason to leave it on deposit in a bank because the interest that you're going to earn isn't even going to come close to covering the purchasing power that you lose due to inflation. And you also run the risk that your bank fails, and maybe the government doesn't bail it out, and so you end up losing money. Or the bank does bail it out, or the government rather does bail out your bank, and they bail out all the other banks by printing money. And so the money that you have on deposit loses value. It may lose most of its value. And so you lose no matter what if you have your money in the bank. Either your bank fails and you lose your money, or your bank gets bailed out and your money loses its purchasing power. So for either reason, you should be withdrawing funds from the bank and doing something else with that money. You should be investing it. You could use it to buy gold and silver, but you can't just let it sit in cash where you're going to guarantee to lose.
You know, and I want people to understand, I heard you recently give a really good explanation about why we shouldn't rest comfortably knowing that the FDIC is there, that federal insurance program. Tell people a little bit about that, why they shouldn't just relax saying, oh, it's insured, don't worry about it, and how shaky that really could be. In addition to, it used to be that the American dollar was the solid, you didn't want to invest too much overseas, and now it could be temporarily, or at least for a number of years, you're suggesting that people maybe rethink that strategy as well. But let's start with the FDIC. What's going on with that?
Well, the FDIC only has about $100 billion. And it doesn't even have the money because it's already loaned it to the U.S. government. It has $100 billion worth of treasuries. So that means the U.S. government owes the FDIC $100 billion. But that's nothing compared to the 17, 18 trillion that's on deposit in U.S. banks. So if one major bank were to fail, the money that was in the FDIC would be exhausted, right away. And of course, there's nothing there. The government owes it to the FDIC. But the only way the FDIC is actually going to get any money is if the Federal Reserve prints it. And so if the Federal Reserve has to print enough money so that the FDIC can actually bail out all the banks that are going to need its help, the money isn't going to have any value. So there's no reason to be confident that you've got the FDIC behind your deposits when there's nothing but inflation that's behind the FDIC. So people have to take the safety of their savings into their own hands. You can't trust the government. You can't trust the Federal Reserve. You need to take action and keep your savings in real assets. And so either in gold or silver, if you just want liquidity, if you don't want to take any risks that might be related to owning stock in a company. But if you're willing to assume those risks, then there are a lot of good companies around the world that you can own, that you can invest in, that will pay you good dividends, both now and in the future. And I think these dividends will likely keep you ahead of inflation. So as the cost of living goes up, your dividends will go up as fast, if not faster.
I wanted to ask you about the Fed. I think a lot of people now understand that it's not a government agency or institution. And actually, if it was now today, with all the other agencies collapsed and malfunctioning, it wouldn't be a good thing anyway. But how much longer? Why do we have to be connected to it? Why are we, I don't want to say a slave to it, but why are we so dependent? And why does it have so much effect over our lives? How do we get out of that? No debt at all?
I guess it's like, once you become a drug addict, you're kind of dependent on the pusher for the drugs. And so we have an economy that is based on debt and cheap money and inflation. And so we get all that from the Federal Reserve. So that's why it's become so important. But it's also very dangerous because it's the reason that we're so sick, the economy, and why we're going to overdose on that drug. And we need to do something about it. But what I would like to see happen is a return to sound money, constitutional money, which would be gold and silver, and move away from the fiat system that we have now and that we've really been operating under for better than 50 years, going back to 1971. Now, the Federal Reserve predates that. It started in 1913. But back then, Federal Reserve notes were not fiat. They were IOUs for dollars, which were a specific weight of gold or silver. That's what Federal Reserve notes were. They were obligations of the Federal Reserve to pay gold and silver to holders of its notes. and that was honored up until 1971 for foreigners when it came to the payment of gold, because under Roosevelt, private gold ownership in the United States was outlawed. So Americans couldn't get gold from the Federal Reserve, but foreigners could. That was a ridiculous situation that was created and that existed for those years. But the Federal Reserve, when it was originally conceived, was created as a private banking syndicate. The Federal Reserve was not a government agency. It was a private bank. And, the U.S. government constitutionally has no authority to do what the Federal Reserve as a private enterprise is doing, because the Constitution does not give the U.S. Congress the right to print money, even if it's backed by gold and silver. They can't print it. They have no monetary authority whatsoever other than making gold and silver, or coining money rather. But they can't define money. They could just coin it. And what coining means is taking money, which is gold and silver as defined by the Constitution. They can take that gold and silver, which is the only thing that states can make legal tender. The federal government has no constitutional authority to make anything legal tender. It can just coin money, and that money is gold and silver. If it coins anything else, it's not going to be legal tender. And, it did coin copper and nickel when it made pennies and nickels, but pennies and nickels weren't legal tender. You could use them, but what was legal tender were the dimes and the quarters that were made of silver, right? Not the base metal coins that were used for smaller transactions. But, today nobody seems to care about the Constitution and the restrictions that it imposes on the government, and most people wouldn't care if the government just, usurped power and started printing money and just got rid of the Fed and printed money directly. But I think that would probably be even worse. As bad a job as the Fed has done, if you give the printing press directly to, Nancy Pelosi or, whoever's in charge, it's going to be even worse. And so the inflation that we suffer will be even greater if we eliminated the Fed and just, turned over their authority to the U.S. government to do that directly. But it would all be unconstitutional. But most of what the government does is unconstitutional. It just gets away with it because the courts don't enforce the Constitution. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, and it makes me think of Congress as well. It's within their purview, correct me if I'm wrong, to, maybe control or put constraints on or requirements upon the Fed, the Treasury Department, and how it all works together. They're just nowhere. They're just asleep at the wheel. I mean, am I wrong?
The Fed is supposed to be independent, right? And so it's not a government agency, so it's not directed by government. I mean, you have the president appointing members to the Fed, but once they're appointed, they act independently. They don't, they're not supposed to do what some politician tells them to do. Now, in practice, they're not very independent at all. They seem to be cooperating with the government, with the Treasury Department. They seem to do whatever the party that holds the White House wants them to do. And that's part of the problem, that we have an independent Fed in name only, that in reality, they have been captured by the government and they do the government's bidding, which is why they keep interest rates so low and keep printing money, is because it enables governments to continue to run deficits. And that's how politicians are able to buy votes. They promise the voters something for nothing. And the reason that they can pretend to deliver something for nothing is because the Federal Reserve makes it possible, because they print money instead of the government having to collect it through taxation.
What's the remedy in the near future if Peter Schiff could wave a wand and put maybe a couple of things into place right now in some fantastical situation? What are the 2 or 3 things you might either do or would like to see done?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a wand that I can wave. So,
if you could, though, what kinds of things would you like to see that could be changed realistically?
Well, again, I'd like to see the nation return to its founding principles of free market capitalism, limited government. I'd like to see the Constitution enforced and I like to see us return to sound money, money that's not created out of thin air by a central bank or a government, but real money. We thrived as a nation when we adhered to those principles. I mean, the 19th century was a boom for the United States, and the early part of the 20th century was enabled by the freedoms that we enjoyed in the 19th century. It's just that by the latter part of the 20th century, the increase in government from the mid-century really started to weigh heavily on our economy. And of course, at this point, the results have been disastrous. We've gone from the world's biggest creditor to the world's biggest debtor. Mm-hmm. Our industrial might has been hollowed out, and we are completely beholden on foreign production for the goods that we consume, and foreign savings for the money that we borrow. I mean, we're a shadow of what we used to be, and that's thanks to the tremendous loss of freedom that we've experienced at the hands of a growing federal government that has usurped powers not authorized to it by the Constitution. But if I could be king for the day or whatever, and do what needs to be done, I would return. The Fed should basically let everybody know that it's no longer going to be fixing interest rates, that it is going to be divesting itself of its current portfolio of treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. Mm-hmm. And it's no longer going to be buying any more. It's going to be selling no matter what happens. And interest rates are just going to be allowed to rise as high as the market wants them. And that no matter what happens, the Federal Reserve will not interfere. Mm-hmm. And that would, force some major changes that are long overdue but need to be made at the federal level. The U.S. government would have to dramatically cut spending. It would have no choice. Entire agencies and departments would likely be eliminated. Entitlements would be dramatically reformed or eliminated, but the government would have to significantly reduce its expenditures. And, the whole economy would have to change because interest rates would be very high. A lot of debt would go into default, which means a lot of lenders would not get repaid, and there'd be a lot of bankruptcies, and mm-hmm. It would be a big problem. But it's unavoidable because until we address the problems, they're just going to get worse. And ultimately, if we don't address them now and we wait until they get worse, then the pain associated with fixing it is going to be greater. And so I am a fan of biting the bullet and dealing with the problems now before they get worse, and dealing with the pain before it gets, even more excruciating.
Sure. Absolutely right. Well said. Thank you so much for that. We're going to take a quick break. We're here with Peter Schiff. And when we come back, I want to talk to Peter about his take on the effect that's coming of all these injuries, whether it's from illnesses, from the COVID flu, or the bioweapon injections, as I call them, and how that's going to affect our economy. I think it's going to be huge. We'll see what he has to say. And also talk to him more about this whole notion of buying silver and gold. We need to demystify that for people so they'll do more of it. I'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and in light of the recent events, your continued support means everything to myself and my employees. To thank you, we're having the biggest sale ever on all MyPillow bedding. Get MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $29.98. A set of pillowcases for only $9.98. In this economy, instead of buying a new bed, rejuvenate your bed with a MyPillow mattress topper for as low as $99.99. We also have blankets in a variety of sizes, colors, and styles, like plush, waffle, or gossamer, for as low as $29.98. We even have pet blankets from small size to the ones for your car. Get huge discounts on duvets, quilts, down comforters, and so much more. So go to MyPillow.com or call that number on your screen. Use your promo code and you'll get huge discounts on all MyPillow bedding, including MyPillow bed sheets for as low as $29.98. Get all your shopping in while quantities last. Please order now.
Well, welcome back. I'm here with Peter Schiff, who is the president of Euro Pacific. Peter, thanks for being here today. As we said in the first segment, I really want to get the conversation going around my health economics hat. It's one of my master's degrees, and very conscientious of how resources are used. I see a terrible, like a freight train or a Mack truck coming in terms of the impact on our economy, and I want to know what you think about it, because as Edward Dowd has pointed out, the all-cause mortality, not more importantly, but equally as impactful, are all these people who have been injured. They're disabled. They're now on some sort of government assistance. They can't work anymore. All of that, and then also keep in mind utilizing healthcare resources, doctor visits, hospital visits, diagnostic tests. It's exploding right now. What are your thoughts on merging that sort of health care resource utilization that I see coming in terms of dumping another major debt issue on our country?
Well, clearly, we spend much too much money as a nation on healthcare. And that, again, is a function of government and the misallocation of resources that have resulted from government subsidies to encourage people to overutilize healthcare. In particular, insurance and the way people get insurance in this country. So all of it is very inefficient. If we had a free market, we would spend a lot less on healthcare, but we'd be a lot healthier. The industry would be far more efficient. And I think, life expectancy would be higher and people would live longer, healthier lives. And also, we'd have more money available to enjoy our lives because we wouldn't be wasting so much of it on healthcare. Remember, the money that we divert to healthcare is money that we can't use for something else.
Right.
And so we have to give stuff up. There's not an unlimited amount of resources. So if we're forced to spend a huge percentage of what we have on healthcare, and most people don't want to spend money on healthcare. They just want to be healthy. They don't want to have to spend money, right? So it's the outcome that's important. But government is all about spending money. They don't give a damn whether or not it's actually effective. They just want you to spend it, right? They're just concerned about having a big bloated bureaucracy. And I'm sure that if we had a lot less government involvement, including if we just abolished the FDA, which I think does far more harm than good, I think we would be able to develop much better drugs in this country, better pharmaceuticals that would be very efficacious in eliminating a lot of the need for healthcare spending, because it's better if you could stay healthy than get sick, right? And so if you could develop things that will keep you healthy. And I also think that a lot of Americans have habits that are very detrimental to their health. And one of the reasons that they pursue those habits is because governments have minimized the consequences. But if people have to suffer the consequences of their own bad decisions, if healthcare is a lot more expensive for people who, don't eat right, don't exercise and smoke and do a lot of things that are self-destructive, if they have to absorb much higher costs, then they may alter their behavior to avoid those costs. We want people to be rewarded financially for making good decisions. We don't want people who make bad decisions to be able to push off the consequences and the cost of those bad decisions on everybody else.
Right, accountability. Speaking of bloated bureaucracies, what's your take on this shift in the last number of years to, it's almost like a corporatization of hospital care. Their physicians are employees. That's another source, I think, of abusing government money, taxpayer money. And I wondered what you thought about that and how that's going to contribute to our all of this debt. Debt.
Any industry in which government plays a big role is going to be bloated, inefficient, expensive. Look at healthcare. Look at education. Those are the two big examples.
Look at the mess they've made of those things.
If it wasn't for government, if government was not involved in education, college would be a lot less expensive today than it was 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago. It'd be just like computers or cell phones. The prices would be going down. They wouldn't be going up. Wherever you have the market forces operating, you see quality improving and price declining. When the government is involved, you see the opposite. You see a degradation of quality and an increase in price. That's what happens in healthcare. That's what happens in education. It's what's happening in banking. It's happened in housing, right? Wherever the government gets involved, you have these huge problems. The solution to the problems is to get government out so that the free market can get back in.
That's correct. That's correct. Very, very true, Peter. I want to shift to the gold and silver. I want to help people. I want you to help me demystify this. And I've heard you do it in a couple of recent interviews, and it's really helpful. People have this notion that, what am I going to do? Get this giant gold bullion and hide it, in the mattress? So how do people do it? What's the form? What forms can they retain it? Demystify it. Make it more real for the everyday person.
There's nothing mysterious about gold and silver. They're metals, they're precious metals, but they're actually real money. For thousands of years, human beings have transacted using gold and silver. And money was an invention that replaced barter. So before we had money, if people wanted to trade, if I made chairs and I wanted, a table, I had to find somebody who made tables who liked my chairs, right? And so we could exchange. But it was very difficult and very cumbersome to always find somebody who had what you wanted and wanted what you had, right? It was tough.
Sure.
But money was an invention where, hey, it doesn't matter. I can buy chairs, tables, whatever I want, and I can pay in gold. I don't need to find somebody who wants what I make. Everybody wants gold because everybody will take gold because it's liquid and it's homogeneous and it's, all gold is the same. And even if you don't need the gold, there's somebody else who does, because gold is a very important metal in industry, in jewelry and things like that. And so gold was able to act as a medium of exchange, as a unit of account, and most importantly, as a store of value, because you could save your gold and spend it in the future, and it wouldn't lose value in the intervening period. But over the years, or the centuries, this whole thing got corrupted, because at one point we started to introduce currency, which was paper that was backed by gold. So you wouldn't have to carry around gold coins. You could leave the gold in a vault and carry around pieces of paper that represented ownership of that gold and that were backed by gold, and that paper was currency. But what gave the currency value was the gold that backed it up. But eventually governments got involved, because initially paper currency was issued by private banks or goldsmiths or anybody who could store the gold. But then governments started to do it. Initially it was legitimate because the governments held the gold and issued paper currency that was backed by the gold. But then they severed the gold backing and just started issuing the currency backed by nothing. And that's fiat currency. And the problem with fiat currency is it has no real value, and governments can create as much of it as they want, ultimately destroying its purchasing power, which is what's happening. So if you want to retain your purchasing power, you need to reject this government fiat money and just go back to real money, and so own gold and silver. You just buy gold coins, silver coins. You can buy bars. They're easy to buy. Schiff Gold is a company I founded. We'll sell them to you. You just got to make sure you don't buy from dealers who are marking them up too much or trying to get you to become a coin collector and buy some so-called rare numismatic coin that might have some special value or some proof set or something like that. That's all a bunch of BS designed to enrich the sellers of gold and to deprive the buyers of a lot of their money. But at Schiff Gold, that's never going to happen. You're going to get quality gold bullion coins and bars. We mark it up maybe 1 or 2%. That's it. And so you're going to get the maximum amount of gold and silver for your money. So the money stays in your pocket. It doesn't get transferred to Schiff Gold, which is unfortunately the case with so many of these gold and silver dealers. Certainly any of them that are advertising. If you see any companies advertising on television, it's because they're overcharging their customers. Otherwise, they couldn't afford those ads. I know.
Okay.
You run a gold company. You can't afford those ads and then not overcharge your customers. And a lot of these gold companies are promoted by a lot of these talk show hosts, and they pay these guys a lot of money. The only way they can afford to write these big checks to these celebrities is by overcharging the customers. So you don't want to get involved with those type of companies.
Yeah, a lot of alternative media. I know I've worked with some of those companies myself, but I have to look a little bit closer at Schiff Gold.
Yeah, Schiff
Honestly
Gold.
speaking,
We've got a free report on Schiff Gold, Gold scams. You can download that free report, and I identify all the popular scams out there, and so you'll know to avoid them if you encounter them.
So your website is europacificfunds.com, correct?
Well, the main website for my asset management company is europac.com.
Europac.com.
Europac.com, right.
Okay.
The other one works too, but it's easier to remember just the europac.com. That's the URL that's above my shoulder right now. And if you want to go directly to Schiff Gold, they've got their own website, which is schiffgold.com.
Okay. That's great. I think people need to know that. So it's europac.com. Did I get that right?
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
and we'll put that in the link stack that goes underneath the show.
Yeah.
So when people go to watch this show, they'll see it automatically, and they'll be able to click on it as a hyperlink. And so I want people to understand this. We're not talking about going to the local Publix or something with your gold coins. They probably would look at you like you're a little crazy, but it's good to be prepared. We're talking about money, not that you need in your everyday cash flow. We're talking about people have savings. They might have $20,000, $30,000, $50,000, maybe $100,000. That should not be sitting in a bank as cash. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you
Okay.
have longer term savings that you don't need for several years, then you don't want to leave it in cash, because the interest that you earn, even if you bought U.S. Treasuries and you got 4 or 5%, that's not going to come close to covering what you're going to lose every year to inflation.
See,
So you
that's the
don't
thing,
want
yeah.
to do that. Inflation is a tax, and it's also a transfer of wealth from savers to debtors. And so your wealth is going to be transferred to some debtor if you just leave it in cash or even in bonds. So you got to own other assets. And I like dividend-paying foreign stocks, value stocks around the world that pay good dividends. That's where most of my money is, and where I recommend most of my clients keep their money. And most of the money that we manage is in solid, value-oriented, dividend-paying foreign stocks.
Yeah, it's so good to have you break this down, Peter, because people don't know how to discern or separate out, the good companies from those that are not, and that are leading them astray. And I just like the way you have your values on the website, and they're conservative financial values, which should be a big message to people. Really, I just want to thank you for being here today. I want to tease the audience a little bit. We will have an after talk with Peter, so don't miss that. And that'll be posted a couple of days after this main show. Peter, anything else you'd like people to know about the work you're doing, or anything else right now in terms of bolstering their financial edification? Because these are uncharted waters as far as I can see. We've got what I feel is like a Marxist kind of imposition in our country right now, if not, a full run of it. And I think we're all worried financially about how to protect ourselves.
Well, I mean, people should be worried, but they should also do something about it, not just stay like a lamb waiting to be led to the slaughter.
Cowering,
That I predicted the 2008 financial crisis years in advance, but what we're going through now is just the rest of that crisis. It was interrupted for over a decade by government policy, but we never really completed the process that we started in 2008. And now we're going to complete it. And unfortunately, we're in so much worse shape now because of more than a decade of additional debt, blowing an even bigger bubble, that the back half of the financial crisis is going to be a lot worse than the front half, and it's not going to end with a bunch of government bailouts, because the government is going to need a bailout. It's going to end with a U.S. dollar crisis and a sovereign debt crisis. And before that happens, people need to be prepared, which I can help them do, but they also need to understand what they're preparing for. And so they should make a point of listening to my podcast, The Peter Schiff Show. I do 2 or 3 podcasts a week, generally. You can listen to them at schiffradio.com. You can go to my YouTube channel, Peter Schiff, or Schiff Report on YouTube, or any place that has podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher. You can listen to the Peter Schiff Show. Follow me on social media, pretty much on all the platforms. In addition to YouTube, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I think Twitter is the platform I tend to utilize the most. I've got almost 1 million followers now on Twitter, so I've also got the most followers there. And it's probably because I tweet more than anything else. And so that's the best place to follow me to get my, my immediate reaction to some news item that comes out is to, look at my Twitter and see what I have to say about it and then share it with other people. Because there are so many people telling lies that when you get somebody telling the truth, it's important that more people hear it. And so you got to share it. That's the beauty of social media.
Yeah, it sure is, Peter. Well, I'm glad you're out there, and a couple more I'll be subscribing to on your platform. So thank you again for being here, and
Sure.
I hope you'll come back again and just keep us going, because I think we're going to need to stay on top of this as the months go by, especially this year.
Yeah, absolutely,
Thanks again.
Ruby. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on, and keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Peter. Well, I'll be back in a moment. Don't miss the After Talk with Peter Schiff. That's going to be amazing. And I'll be back after this important message. Hi, everyone. Dr. Jane Ruby here. Many of you know that I promote products that I believe in and have vetted, but I also promote products that I use myself. I want to introduce you to Cardio Miracle, the world's best nitric oxide supplement. I'm getting reports from not only the general public, but from experts like Dr. Kevin Stillwagon, a frequent guest on the Dr.Jane Ruby Show. He's a treating doctor and experienced commercial airline captain, and he's reporting that Cardio Miracle is making a difference in reducing the symptoms in the jabbed, protecting people from the effects of the microclotting caused by spike proteins. It's delicious, and I mix one scoop in 8 ounces of water twice a day. For those of you who've taken the jab and are concerned about your cardiac and circulatory health, my conversations with Dr. Kevin Stillwagon and Josh Yoder from U.S. Freedom Flyers in an upcoming interview on the Dr. Jane Ruby Show will show you them describing the benefits and the reports they're getting. So check it out at mypowerheart.com. Learn more and try it for yourself. That's Cardio Miracle at mypowerheart.com. Enjoy. Well, welcome back. Right now, we need to turn to experts that have been right, or more right than not, and certainly not continue to do the same things we've done before. I think Peter Schiff's take on the current state of the economy in the United States and the trajectory for where we're headed is in this somewhat uncharted territory, in all fairness, has been invaluable. We've never been under a communist regime before, and its totality. We've never been under so much communist influence that has resulted in serious and obvious transitions in our country prior to this. And as he says, our economy and the regional banks are much less stable than they were during the Great Depression. And that says a lot. Well, I hope you'll be able to take this information, discern with it, find other financial experts that are doing good work and that are smart, not just rushing you to make a sale. Never before has there been a time in our country when it was more apparent that there's no oversight. There's very little trust in our government or agencies because they're basically collapsed right now. And so it's up to you and me to take responsibility for protecting ourselves, our families. But at least we can bring you some information to make you aware and to start you on your way. Well, thank you for being with me tonight. I hope this was enlightening, and I hope you got some insight into the health economics that are about to impact our country from all of these C-19 bioweapon shots. Nobody else is talking about it. It's the health economic burden. It's, like Peter Schiff said, we only have so much in the way of resources, rather. And then when you dump onto the system all these hundreds of thousands of Americans that have been injured from these shots, they're not just sitting home, looking at the wall. They're going to the doctor more frequently. They're having more diagnostic tests, more blood tests, more imaging, more x-rays, all leading mostly to nothing. And then the cancer treatments, the cancers that are exploding, rare cancers, very, very aggressive tumors, those are getting saturated with chemotherapy and other types of cancer treating approaches. Tons of money, my friends. Where do you think it's coming from? It's going to turn if you're still with insurance companies, which I'm not even sure is worth it, but that's not my wheelhouse. But even if you're still with them, your premiums are going to go up because it's a shared risk, right? Anyway, lots to think about. I'm going to sign off for tonight. Follow me on all my social media. Telegram, t.me/drjaneruby, Twitter, Gab, and all the rest. My new website, drjaneruby.com, will be up very shortly, and it's going to be an incredibly stunning and very useful to you, very useful website in more than ever before. We are now in the full-blown lawsuit. I'm under direct attack by the self-proclaimed inventor of the mRNA shots and vaccines, as he says, Robert Malone, in spite of multiple requests on my behalf by my legal counsel to shut this down. His attorney has served me officially about a week ago, which means we have no choice but to sink the money into retainers and start to respond to his outrageous, unfounded, frivolous complaints. If you're as outraged as I am in this, about this attempt that he admitted, by the way, in his social media was to, quote, put a chill on the internet and social media, please speak with your donations, rather, to my legal defense fund. Please go to givesendgo.com, protect Dr. Jane. I'm very grateful to all of you who have contributed either directly at the site or by check. You can send those to my name at 4371 North Lake Boulevard. That's one word, North Lake Boulevard, Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, 33410. And thanks for the coffee cups. They're still coming in, and they're wonderful, and they're heartwarming. Thanks so much, everyone. And don't forget to catch Coffee Chat tomorrow morning, and we'll see you back here on Friday night's show. Have a great evening, everyone. God bless you all.